Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live Game Dev, the Pico proposition. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of our day at the end of a week, kick back, hang out. Sometimes we do some Q&A. Sometimes we follow along with the developer and take a look at a bit of their process. This week, we are doing the process show, and joining us on the show this week is John Carney from the UK props and weapons team. John, how you doing, man?
I'm not too bad, man. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for hanging out. You've done one of these shows before.
Yeah, so when I just started a couple of months in, I was on with Corey for the 890,
Right.
and that was it. That was way over a year ago now, which is crazy. Coming up on 2 years here.
It all just blurs together for me, if I'm being completely honest.
It does feel like since with lockdown, everything's sort of been on pause, but then everything carries on at the same time as well. It's weird.
I was just saying because I'm on 6 years at this point, so it's hard to tell the difference between. It's like, what year did we do that in? What version of the show were we doing then? So today, as a member of the props and weapons team and stuff, we are going to follow along with the creation of an asset for the Star Citizen Precision Universe. Can you tell us what we're making today?
Oh, well, we were such a big fan of the Halloween episode that we felt that the DIY sort of castaway Pico head needed to be in the game. We decided we were going to make it and put it in.
If I had thought about this ahead of time, I would have grabbed it. Hold on. So yeah.
This.
So this is the. Hold on. Got to keep it in focus. So this is the Pico. We'll go back to full screen here real quick. So this is the Picoball that was created by yours truly for our Halloween episode this year. It is masterful. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. Like normally, it's like I'll do a little humility, a little humble pie here, but not on this guy. This is
over on the props team. We were very impressed.
this will be my legacy. So yeah. we're going to create. We're going to see if we can't create this in engine for addition to the Precision Universe. So if you want, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? We'll get started. And
all right, awesome.
The John Carney Pico proposition. That sounds like an album name. The John Carney Pico proposition.
That'll be coming after the show.
We'll get started. All right.
Yeah. So like all great models, it starts with humble beginnings with a cube. I suppose what I should really explain is that first what I was after doing was sort of like breaking down the model into the sort of shapes. And I'm sure like you started with the volleyball and built onto it. I sort of wanted to approach the model from the same way. So start with a volleyball, which a bit weird to start with a cube. But by turbo smoothing it pretty quickly, we can get a sphere. And you're already that sort of like squared sphere. Look, we're already 90% of the way there.
You really sell the difficulty of your work right there.
Done. Completed. One thing I do, because I'm really lazy, is I'm just going to actually work on one face and I'm going to copy it around in instances. So I'll sort of explain that.
That's a very common thing when you talk to artists, as much as I have. They love symmetry because it allows them to just make one half of it and then copy it.
Yeah, work smart, not hard. That's what I always say. So now, yeah, we're just going to be able to make changes. Oh, you know what? Speaking of working smart, I've not actually set them as instances. So just to demonstrate what that is for anyone at home who isn't familiar with Max is. Now, basically, when I make changes to this face, it'll make changes to that one. We can make little dances with our models like this. And then, yeah, we need all our sides to make it a good volleyball. Otherwise, it won't bounce very well. And then now that we've got this like one face, as well as just like making changes to the individual faces on it, we can actually apply modifiers in Max that will apply to all of them now. So if we put another turbo smooth on this, you can see it's applied to all of them. So now I can almost forget about those ones and just work entirely off this one. And looking at our reference, always got to work from reference. These volleyballs, they're split into sort of panels.
Mm-hmm.
I was never good at sports, so I don't know. That's what I'm guessing from the photo. So we're going to split these into panels. So So these are still part of the same model, but they're now detached. So from there, we can apply a shell modifier, which is basically going to make these planes become 3D. So they have a little bit of depth to them. Gonna have to crank it a little bit more than that. So here we have our sort of like rubber panels that would go in the volleyball. And then if we apply a chamfer to soften the edges a little bit, and then our turbo smooth on top, we should have some pretty high poly, nice looking panels. If I unhide all, you can see the rest of them. I think these are probably going to need a 90-degree rotation on them.
I feel like the maker of the original volleyball would be throwing up right now at how easily you're doing this. I spent so much time inventing the original volleyball, and
I've copied it in 30 seconds. So yeah, not good to have holes on your volleyball. All the air is going to come out. So I'm just going to throw a push modifier on, which, as you can imagine, is just going to push everything out a little bit to fill the crevices. And then that's it. We have our volleyball, which is 90% of the project. So yeah, then from here we thought, all right, how are we gonna get tape on the model and get that sort of tape look? So just copying the geo of one of the models, because again, I'm a lazy artist. I'm not gonna make something again.
Remember, you got an hour to fill.
Yeah, I should probably slow down a bit. Well, in actual production, what I did now is I made a coffee, I drank it, and I played a game of pool by myself in the office, and then I came back to it. So if I detach this now, I have my tape, which has got hidden away for a second, and I'm just going to make my life a little bit easier and make that a different color so I can see it. So we'll give that a little bit more geo so we can play around with it. I'm going to show one of my favorite tools, which is the Conform Tool. So if you can imagine, tape sits very close to what you stick it to.
Right.
So to get this to stick this closely now could be a very tedious job of moving all the edges in, try and get it as flush as possible. So instead I use the Conform tool where I can pick a surface. In this case I'm picking this one, and now I can get all the verts and I can, it should paint and conform it. In true game dev fashion, it's not working.
Somebody in the chat was asking if you pre-gamed any of this.
If I made prepared something earlier?
Yeah, like you seem to have all these steps down, and you're speaking in the past tense when you explain yourself. Like the next thing I did. So it's the chat is asking.
I had a little think before the stream of how I did it and what I was going to talk about. So it's not completely off the cusp, but yeah, I may have done it before. It might be a surprise. We'll see. We'll see how far we get in the stream.
Well, it's people who watch the game dev streams know that you very rarely, if ever, can make something in an hour.
In that case, then yeah, the gig's up. I've made this before, guys. But I'm going to show you the steps.
You sit on a throne of lies.
It's all real, guys. I promise.
Yeah, it's just like Gone Link Dead has it's just like cooking on TV. It's like when they sit there, they go to the cooking show, and
that's not the first time.
And they sit there like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. They do all that, mixing the ingredients here, and they chop everything, and they put it in the oven, and then they go to the oven that's right next to it, and here's what it looks like when it's done.
Yeah. So I've managed to get it working now, and as you can see, using the Conform tool, I can paint this really, really close to the surface to get that tape-like effect. I probably should have, before I did that, give it a little bit of rotation, because nothing's ever perfect, especially when you're applying tape.
Is that a dig at me?
Yeah. Let's just say we love the sort of little quirks of the production of the Pico hat. It wasn't perfect, but we love it for that.
Hey, I made the original in about 20 minutes. So
Count Disco made the original, from what I understand.
That's fair.
So yeah,
that's fair.
From here, same process again. We've shelled it a little bit, so we get a little bit of depth. And one thing I like to do as well, again to reiterate the point, nothing's ever perfect. We're going to throw a little bit of noise on, and that's just going to make it wrinkly. We don't want to make it too wrinkly. Ooh. That's probably a good example of what too wrinkly is. As you can see, a little bit of surface noise it adds a lot of character. And again, to own up, yes, I have made one before, and this is what it looks like with a couple of more pieces of tape on it. If I get the tape there as well. So yeah, this is oven number 2 that I'm pulling the food out of. A couple of more time spent applying those bits of tape and getting it to look natural. We've basically got this, and a lot of these wrinkles and stuff that aren't in the high poly, we can add when we're texturing as well. You don't have to do everything in the high poly. You're just trying to get the general shapes and forms in.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the same thing that I did with the tape then for the smaller bits of tape, and I quickly modeled. These are just planes that have been dragged out and down to sort of get that like card look. And same again, they've had a little bit of noise applied to them. You can sort of see in their shape, they're not completely perfect. Nothing ever is with, especially with arts and crafts sort of stuff. And then yeah, we've got our little nose put on, and he's taped that on as well. We experimented with the idea of putting like buttons for eyes, that you'd get on like sock puppets or something, but we decided to stay true to the original Pico head. And then yeah, from our high poly, obviously this super dense. Can't put this model in game. As much as I'd love to, Corey would fire me. The game wouldn't run. So I have to make a low poly, and through texture and magic, we're basically going to get a lot of this information onto the low poly in the form of a texture. So we're going to do something called baking, and when we're baking, basically the high poly is going to sit above the low poly, and through the magical process of baking, it's going to sort of emboss all that details down. So I think I have one I can show. So this is our texturing package that we do for unique textures. I'm sure if they've seen the sort of show before, they know our usual workflow on props is that we use a lot of tiling textures, and we get a lot of our details through POM. This is one of the sort of few instances that everyone on the prop team jumps with joy to get to do, where we get to make something completely unique with a high and low, and it just means we get that extra level of detail and stuff because we're not relying on doing everything with tilables. So when we are doing those unique textures, we use Substance Painter. So we're bringing in our low poly, which, as you can see, on its own, not really getting the Pico vibe from it yet. We bring in our high poly, which we've seen with all our tape on it, and our little nose popping out, and all those little imperfections in the noise, and we can do a little bake. And that's basically getting all the detail from the high, and it's putting it on our low. And it's going to give the illusion that there's sort of geometry there that isn't. So we look at this now, we can see that it appears like there's tape on this thing, but it is actually perfectly flat. Well, spherical. Sure you see where I'm coming from. And that is that's you've seen behind the curtain. That's how we do everything. Nothing is real. Everything's baked.
Well, that's how you get it. That's how you get it to be performative, while still maintaining, all the detail that people have come to expect.
Absolutely, yeah. This is how we get it to actually run. As much as I'd love to just stick the high poly model straight in.
We use it in our ships as well. All that parallax occlusion mapping. It's how we get the. It's like when you see the floor grading that looks like there's a tract underneath your feet with a bunch of cables and everything. That's not actually there.
It's trick of the eye. It's quite clever, and because we have that sort of technology to do that, it means that we can sort of create a game with such huge scope, like universe size game, because of all those little sort of like savings we get from doing things like that. So yeah, we've got our very basic Pico with the information from the high poly baked down. I've gone through the effort, all the tedious, boring process of exporting it and putting it into editor. And we've got our little scene here. Count Disco gave me permission to make the Pico head, so in return we've given him a little shout out on another volleyball, and to create this sort of Castaway-esque scene. I think every good prop tells a story. We've placed them by the sea on Houston, so as you can imagine,
beyond the sea.
Somewhere in the future, these things have washed up, and someone in the verse is going to find them and know that Count Disco was here with his Pico head. So yeah, we can't leave it like this in the game. It's a little bit boring, so we better get some textures on it. So you might have noticed when I was in Max that I have all these funky colors on the Pico head. That isn't the intended final color scheme for this thing. What I'm making is an ID map. So if you imagine when you come to texture it in the package, you're going to want to be able to quickly highlight all the tape. So I can make all the tape material. I can make the volleyball material, and the paper this, and because there's actually no details on the low poly, there's no way of selecting where the tape's going to be. So we bake out something called an ID mask, which you can see here. It's like it's a colorful mask that breaks everything up. I'll find a better way to show it. So right now, let's say we want the volleyball to be red, which we don't. If we add a mask with a color selection and then pick the color, we bring our mask up. And now I can just color pick the green, and that'll put it on the tape, or I could color pick the orange, that puts it on the nose. And this is just going to speed up the texturing tenfold, and hopefully means we can get this done within the hour. Otherwise, it would be a very long stream. So first things first, I'll probably start breaking things down into folders and getting sort of like base textures in. So the volleyball is obviously going to be white, but I think we'll do a bit of like an off-white.
An off-white, yeah.
Yeah.
It's seen some.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's washed up in Hurston. It's had a hard life. So if we color pick that and we can apply it straight to the volleyball, and as you can see, we're off. So we'll do another folder. This one we'll do. Yeah, I should probably set a good example and name these things. Not let everyone know how messy I actually work in real life.
For those who ask what program, you can see it in the upper left-hand corner. Right now we're in Substance Painter.
Yeah, so this is Algorithmic, I believe, makes Substance Painter. We use a couple of other softwares. I think in the 890 episode I was last on, we were using Designer.
Right.
But this is Painter. So for this, we'll call this one the black tape, and then we'll put a layer in there. And I know that material-wise, they're probably not being sold as what they're intended to be at the moment. But we really are just like blocking in colors the same way. If you were making a painting or a portrait of someone, you wouldn't immediately jump into just painting in perfect detail what their eyeball looks like. You block in the big shapes. That's basically what we're doing here.
For Gran Lebowski, who says, "Why are they doing this instead of programming?" Because I am not a programmer, and neither is John.
Yeah, I mean, I could try and program
John is a props artist, so he's doing what he does, and I am a video host, so I'm doing what I do.
Doing a great job as well, can I say? Maybe for the next stream, I'll have a go at programming and see how far we get.
That would be an interesting show at some point. Like at some point, I haven't hit everything we can do yet, but at some point I'm going to run out of stuff. And then we'll start doing like challenge shows where we take programmers and have them work in HR for a day.
Yeah,
like
just see what goes on.
For all the people that seem to think each person can do everybody's job.
If only it was that simple. I wish it was. So we've got our masking tape folder, and then again with our masking tape, we'll do a bit of an off color, desaturate it a bit. There we go. And the good thing about these this color mask is you might see that there's a little bit of like bleeding at the moment. We can play around with the tolerance of the mask, so we can play around. So it just covers just the edges, and that way we're not getting any of these white lines between things. Yeah, so we're just missing the top bits. Yeah, this would have been a lot easier if you'd have made the DIY Pico head a lot simpler,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you got, based on how long it took me to make the original, you got like 3 minutes left. In our artist challenge, Jared versus John, if you can't finish this in 3 minutes, I'm clearly the.
I think it might be it might be time to open the third oven and get the finished thing out if I've got 3 minutes left.
No.
So I'm just going to play around with tolerance again, get rid of those. You can see those white edges disappearing on the masking tape.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So yeah, this is very boring, very basic, but we've blocked it in. And then here comes the boring bits where we have to export our textures. And then if I've got everything correctly linked, these should start to appear. Yeah, we've got our basic textures in. So on the other screen, because it's really boring, I'll just get those exported, and we can get a first look of what it's going to look like in Engine amongst the sea.
Every time you say that, I want to sing Beyond the Sea, and I'm really holding myself
Hey, don't
back.
Yeah, don't make me hold you back, man. Go crazy.
Now I will say, I noticed you took some artistic license with the small little tape bits.
Yeah.
No, I like them. I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, my modeling skills aren't as good as your craft skills, so I had to compensate. You know,
No.
I think it adds a little bit of character.
It does.
Well.
It does.
No,
I like him.
He looks. I don't know about you, but he's really weirding me out without any eyes.
Yes.
So just to make me feel a little bit more comfortable, I'm just going to give him some eyes because I don't like the sort of like void blank stare I'm getting from the whole thing. So if we put a layer over everything, and we just call this marker pen. Oh, not market pen. And then we add a black mask, but this time rather than using the ID to mask it, we can just kind of paint straight onto it. And then we can paint our little Pico eyes. Don't worry, we're going to refine those later. They're not going to stay looking like that.
Shiv it.
This is how Pico feels right now, because he's not looking his best. That's how he feels. So usually about now, I'd go through like my sort of second pass of refining materials. So I think we'll do that. I think we'll start with the volleyball, and we'll elaborate on this sort of like base texture that we have. So a specular, we're going to keep quite low because we don't want it reflecting too much light. We're going to ramp the glossiness a little bit so it looks sort of brand new, which sounds crazy, but we're going to make it grungier in the other layers. So the base one will keep it quite clean. So when we were doing our baking before, you'll see that we generated a bunch of masks as well as like normal and ambient occlusion. We've got things like curvature, position, thickness.
Mm-hmm.
Those maps don't actually go in the game, but they help us use the smart masks in the software when we're texturing. So I'll explain that a little bit. So just for the sake of an example, we'll get a really bright color like a red, and we'll mask it. We can use something called smart mask, which is where it's going to sort of look at those maps that we baked and look at the curvature of the model, look at the crevices on the model, and figure out where things like dust and rust would begin to accumulate, and it'll mask it out for us. So here's a good example. This mask.
Wow.
Yeah, so using all those maps that we baked from the high to the low, it's now figuring out, despite there actually being no crevice here, perfectly flat, it's figuring out, on the high poly, on the real thing, these are where they would go. And that's how we can get that sort of like extra level of detail on our models that as artists we love to do. So for the color, I'm going to pick our base one. And I imagine it would get just a little bit darker in these crevices as things like dust and dirt would get in there. And obviously they wouldn't be very glossy. We'd want them to be quite rough. And if we throw a height layer on, just drop it a little bit, you can almost subtract from the model a little bit.
Death Snake says, "Who bets it will be a sub item? It won't be a sub item."
And if I just play around with our mask there as well, we can actually play with the intensity of how it's spreading. So I don't actually know if I want to use this mask. I think trying to remember what I may have used on one I made earlier. I think something like this. Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you're starting to get that sort of like surface noise that you would get on as you can imagine, like quite an aged volleyball. Like, it wouldn't just be perfectly smooth like this. It would have some sort of texture to it. I mean, otherwise your hand wouldn't grip when you were playing volleyball. So we pull that back a little bit because we just want to be subtle about it. We don't want to go overboard,
Right.
And then on top of this, we'll just add a little bit of dirt. So a lot of the texturing process is like this. It's sort of like slowly building it up in layers, and then you'll go back and you'll do another pass, and maybe you'll take away or add a little bit more and stuff. It's a very iterative process. I think sometimes people think we just sort of like get it right first time or something, and I assure you that's never the case.
I don't think that's ever been the case in any video game in the history of video game development. Yeah, we got it the first time.
Yeah, nailed it.
I sat
10
down and
down.
it just like sprang out of my head like Hercules from Zeus, just into creation. That's not how it works.
So I think we'll throw some like scratches on here. Again, just to imply that this thing is washed up on the shores of Hurston. It's not been well looked after. Again, if we subtract on the height, we can start to get a little bit of like surface information. Not too much, just a little subtle thing. And just gonna. I think our mask might be playing up because it seems to be putting it everywhere. I think we'll leave the volleyball for now, and we'll move on to the tape. Oh, we've lost his eyes again. So yeah, same thing for the tape. We had our base layer, which was just a plain black. I think it's a little bit too dark. I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. And same thing again, we're going to want a bit of sort of like noise on the surface to really sell it as tape. So rather than adding another layer with colors on it or something, I'm just going to add a height layer. And then in Subs' design, they have all these really cool sort of like procedural generators that will just generate sort of like various types of noise. So we'll go on here, that's like a Clouds 3. If we apply this to our height.
Oh yeah, Clouds 3, that's a great one.
That's a great. Clouds 3
is really choice.
It's a fan favorite, that's for sure.
It's Cloud. In my heart, it's Clouds 1.
So we play around with the scale on this, and then we want to drop the intensity because this is even for heavy duty duct tape. This is pretty intense. So we go into our height layer, and sort of this side panel here works just like Photoshop in that we can play around with how the layer overlays and its opacity and that sort of stuff. So we drop that down just a little bit. Got a little bit of surface noise for our duct tape. One thing I haven't done yet, which I like to do on all my models, just to really help sell sort of like 3D-ness of it, is one of our textures that we got from Bacon, ambient occlusion, which is just a sort of map that highlights all the sort of crevices and the shadows and stuff. So this is what it looks like standard. And then one cheeky little trick we do is we just overlay that with a multiply over all our other work. If I just play around with the opacity here, you can see how it just sort of fills in the crevices.
Yeah.
Makes everything pop a little bit. You start to get shadows forming in these areas, which, we're trying to imply that these are two little bits of paper that aren't touching or anything. We know it's actually just one poly. But by using ambient occlusion, we can help solve that. So I'm just going to do another export again to get an update of how our volleyball material is coming in Engine. I think sometimes you can get quite stuck and focused on making things look nice in here, and then by the time you export it in Engine and put it in a hanger or wherever it is you intend for the model to go eventually, it can end up looking completely different to what you actually intended.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always important that we sort of flick back and forth, even though it involves this long, tedious process of exporting all our textures through Photoshop. Okay, and this should update pretty quickly. So there we go. I think maybe went a little bit too yellow with the volleyball. But yeah, all our surface information's coming through. Ignore these bits because I've turned the layers off so they're not appearing. We're just sort of like focusing on the volleyball material for now. Yeah, no, I think we're getting there. I think we're okay with the volleyball material. We'll keep pushing all the other ones. Okay, so we want.
You're about halfway through right now.
All right, awesome. So foil's always a tricky one. Trying to get like metals to render correctly in here and in Engine, they sort of render a little bit differently. So we sort of have to, just through trial and error, we know what it's going to look like in here, and it'll look wrong. But we know by the time it gets in Engine, it'll look right. So from when I definitely didn't make one prior, from what I can remember, I think I used a crumble procedural generator to get that sort of wrinkly effect that you get on foil. If I bring back my reference again, we're basically trying to recreate this at the moment. So we're just going to want this in the height. So if we drop the height and we add a mask, and then we use the crumple in our mask. And hopefully see, I think for the time being, I'm just going to throw a blank material on there so we can see it better. You can see we're starting to get that rippled effect.
Mm-hmm.
If we ramp that up a little bit, yeah, we're starting to get that sort of like wrinkly tinfoil. I'm just going to change the scale a little bit. So there we go. Now we're getting tinfoil. And then I'm just going to drop the intensity of it a little bit. It's a little bit too much for my liking. And then we'll get rid of the layer I just added. You see, you can get lost quite quickly with all the layers you're adding, especially when you're being naughty and not naming it. See if our foil's looking like foil and engine again. Are people liking Pico in the old chat?
For the most part, some folks are. Let's just say that the Mercury Star Runner hit the PTU yesterday, so we've got some attention competition at the moment.
All right.
It's a
not big
good
enough
looking.
Pico
It's
fans.
a good looking ship.
Hey, we've not finished yet, man. We're not down and out yet. We've still got 30 minutes to sell Pico. There, look at that. The tinfoil coming through. You're telling me that the ship looks better than this tinfoil? I don't know.
This is pretty good.
Yeah, I hope you can see as well the difference in how it renders in the package. It looks like black treacle. But yeah, just trial and error through texture and so many props. You can almost see what it's going to look like in engine by how bad it looks like in Painter.
Yeah, I feel like some of the wrinkles that you added to the foil would probably work for the tape as well. Not to that extent, but as I'm looking at the original, the tape is actually fairly wrinkled as well.
Yeah, we could probably add that and then change the scale. So it's probably not as scaled on the...
Yeah, because you don't want it to look just like a different colored foil.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Change the severity, change the scale.
From the original Pico creator himself, I will be, on his suggestion, I'll be adding some crumples. We'll put it in the height again. And we'll add a black mask. We'll use our crumples again. Definitely getting my use out of the crumple texture today.
At some point, after this goes into the PU, there'll be people who take this thing and take it to the basketball court.
Oh, you couldn't do that to Pico.
Use the new improved throw.
So yeah, maybe something like this. It's not quite as intense. I think one more thing we could do is probably if we added a blur to the crumples so they're a little bit softer.
Dragon Ghost says, "Can you confirm price on MSR?" No, John is a props artist. He does not have that information. Nor do I, as a video person.
I could have a guess. If I just get the base texture, I think our tape's probably looking a little bit too shiny for tape. So I'm just going to drop the glossiness a little bit. And hopefully, if we compare our gloss values in here, yeah, we should get a little bit of contrast. I think the noise we added as well. I'm going to see if we can add a little bit of that noise in the gloss. So if we go back to our procedural generators again, and we'll look for a grunge one.
I do appreciate the Harry Carey reference, Don Steeler. I worked with the real Harry Carey in 1995.
That was the year I was born. I hate to make you feel old.
Oh,
That was the year I was born.
oh.
It was a good year. You met that person, and I was born. Maybe it evens out. So yeah, our masking tape's getting there. It's an iterative process. I'm not putting I'm putting a pin in the tape for now. We'll come back to that. Masking tape. It's not a whole lot you can do with masking tape. It's pretty plain, but we'll do our best. Going to drop the gloss on it a little bit because it's not very glossy. I think I'm just going to bump the height a little bit as well, and that's just going to make it pop out a little bit, really give that illusion of depth. I might just lighten that colour a little bit. There we go. A bit more masking tapey. And he needs his beak. Pico's got to have his beak.
His beak was originally created from a manila envelope that the Brian Chambers wig was shipped to us in.
I was wondering where you got the yellow card. I thought you'd well, I should say I thought Count Disco had gone to the craft store and really went all out on the Pico head.
Nope.
I should probably be looking at my my reference, as a good artist should. I think.
Is a question from the chat. Does the Picoball come with LTI? Of course.
So we'll put this in a little folder called Pico's very important beak.
His lifetime terror insurance.
He's really coming to life now. I think the beak's selling it. Once again, going to drop the glossiness on that. It's a very shiny beak. And for his helmet tops, they're grey. Again, not so much you can do with them. They are just card after all. Drop the gloss on those. There we go. So I think we should probably jump into the pen. And some pen details.
The pen details. And then we need. I like the eyebrows. The original.
It loses.
Well,
he looks a little aggressive.
Well, technically, the original did have. I guess it's kind of a unibrow. Let me. Can you see the camera as I'm showing it to you?
Yes.
So like the tape ended here. And then
yeah, I noticed that.
And then this is drawn in. This is drawn in the same thing. So.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that. The creator has spoken. We'll
just kind of. I could just keep this here and just make it.
Don't, because I'll start comparing it and it'll make me feel bad. I know I can never live up to it.
No, it's great. Like I said, I really like the little like Scotch tape editions. I think they're a genuine improvement on the original.
Okay. Ooh. He's not supposed to be that color. You know what? I'm gonna start with a new texture. I promise when I'm not making things on stream, I am very meticulous and I name all my layers. Especially if Corey's listening to this.
Some layers are called New Layer 1. Some are called New Layer 2.
Final.
I do not. It would be terrible to show the folder of how many final versions of even just the Halloween episode there was. There's Final V2, really final.
Final this time 11111. Yeah. I've been there. Okay, yeah. So probably won't paint with this because it doesn't look very pen-like. So we'll go back into our alphas, and we have lots of cool swirly brush type ones. They're a little bit more marker penny, and we're going to do some other tricks down the line to really help sell it as pen. So just bear with me, audience, for the time being. I get my my reference up again. Yeah, so he's got his big monobrows, and I see what you've done. You've tried to you've used the tape to bulk in the most of the color black, and then you've You've sort of softened the edges with your pen, am I right?
Actually, no. I only did the pen in the center. There was no pen on the other ones.
No, not at the side.
No, there's no pen on the sides at all. That's
Correct.
it was just in the center.
Okay, just the monobrow then.
Yeah, just the monobrow in the center.
Oh. There we go. See, he's got a lot more of a face now, I think.
Yeah.
Looking a bit.
Yeah, the
evil
monobrow was essential.
It was definitely a deal breaker. Yeah, without it, it was not Pico. Okay, yeah, no. So I think I'll do the eyes on another layer because I have a suspicion that I will say I'm doing this with a mouse right now, and I usually have a tablet, so my drawing ability is not the best right now.
Hey, Paul Jones draws with a mouse. Paul Jones has the steadiest mouse hand of any human being I've ever seen.
I'm not there yet. I'm getting there.
Like we actually we did a little competition with Paul Jones once. Like he can draw a perfectly straight line without
With a mouse?
With a mouse without holding down any alignment keys.
You don't think he's got like a ruler on his mouse, Matt? He's tricking you.
I've seen it. I've seen it
seen
in real
it?
life. He did it once, and we're like, that's a fluke. And he just went line after line after line after line. Like, how does that happen? And he's not rocking like a $600 mouse or anything with 9 million DPI. He's just the man.
Just magic. So I noticed in all your eye drawing ability, we've just got a little bit of white. A little bit of black missing on the end there.
Yeah, that was my artistic flair.
Oh, hey, I was sold, man. I think it really adds character, If we zoom out now. Yeah, the one on the right, a lot more character.
Yeah.
There we go. So it's a little rough. We'll export this. We'll get a little update on how it's looking in editor. And we'll come back and iterate. This is not the final version of the eyes.
No.
Do you think Count Disco would approve of this so far?
So far.
Yeah.
I'm curious what we're gonna do for the visor though.
Oh. I might have not had a plan for the visor.
I was wondering. I was like, in all the versions you've shown me, the visor hasn't been there.
Man, you picked 45 minutes in the stream to point out the visor. We could have gone back to like minute 3. I could have done with knowing about that. I suppose. I said at the beginning, every good prop has a little bit of storytelling in it. We could say the visor fell off in its journey across the oceans. We're not sold. Not sold.
I'm just curious to see what you're gonna do.
Yeah, it fell off, Pico. Visors are throwing you in space, and he's on a planet now, so he's popped his visor up. It's hidden away behind the tape, and he's just chilling now. I keep forgetting to get rid of that. We went really yellow on the ball.
Yeah.
And it lived a weathered life, but I don't know if it lived that weathered of a life. It's gonna go back and tweak that. We'll make a little lighter, a little bit more desaturated. Oh, there we go. Maybe that's a little bit too. See, very iterative. This is the side of art you probably don't get to see, which is me spending 20 minutes changing it, going into engine, going no, coming back, changing it, and then changing it back, and then settling for what I originally had in the first place eventually. So I'm gonna get rid of that. Find our marker pen, which I definitely labeled marker pen. And then over time, how like marker pen always gets like rubbed away and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna try and like recreate that effect of like it's sort of missing in the texture of the ball and the crevices and stuff. So we put this in a folder and we call it pen. And we're going to do exactly what we did before when we were sort of adding details to the crevices of the volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
But this time we're going to take away. So rather than adding pen to the crevices, we're going to take it away from the crevices and stuff and hopefully get that sort of rubbed effect on it. So if we go back into our smart masks and we'll look for You know what? We'll just play around with all of them.
Yes,
Gonna
Brad
all in.
Wolf, the whole SCL is going to be this. We do it
Oh
every
no!
Friday, 50 some odd weeks a year. After 6 years, there's like hundreds of these. This is what this one is.
So you can see we're sort of getting it where it's like rubbed away a little bit.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit intense, but we keep it at that for now. And then one thing I always like to do, just to give a bit of a human touch, because these automated generation things never sort of get it always quite right. Needs an artist touch. Otherwise, I'm out of a job. So it's got to have a needs an artist touch, definitely. Can't have computers do everything. So if we make, you know what, this isn't the rush we want. Have a browse. Something like this, and we just imagine that as Count Disco's making it, his elbow is just smudged the corner of the eye a little bit, but he's not bothered to put it back. He's fine with it. And then when he was doing the other side, oh no, he didn't smudge it that much. His elbow smudged it a little bit there as well. And somewhere in its journey across the universe, floating across the ocean, it lost a little bit there as well. I'm not making this up. These are all artistic decisions that I'm making. Years training go into these sort of decision making. That's what I want to know.
Well, not too many years, Mister. I was born in 1995.
Not too many years. 2, maybe 3. I lost a little bit more here, and yeah, there's just a lot more character now. If we, just a little bit more. Yeah. See how this comes out. You know what? Whilst I was exploring as well, I'll do a little bit more work. See if we can do 2 birds, 1 stone. So our card at the top is probably looking a little bit boring. I think we're going to need a little bit of texture for that. So we've got our base one here. We've dropped the gloss, so it is a bit more papery. I'm just going to add another layer, and we're going to do what we did before. I don't think we're going to use the. No, actually, we'll use the crumple again. We'll get our use out of it today.
Chat's pretty insistent on the visor. I don't think we'll have time for the visor today, guys.
Yeah, maybe I could, after the stream, I could make a few tweaks.
Unfortunately, the visor requires going back like to step 3 and adding it in before we baked it down.
Was no one buying the story that it fell off in space? Was no one buying that?
This is the Star Citizen crowd, dude. They
can't please them.
Oh, no. That's not true. It's just about fidelity.
Yeah,
it's just about they know a thing's supposed to be there and it's not there.
They're big Pico fans. They know how we should look. I understand.
Yeah. It's just about the fidelity.
We've got the crumples on the top, so it's getting a little bit more sold as paper now. If I just turn that off, you can see what we had before versus what we have now. In fact, I think I've done such a good job on that, if I say so myself. I'm going to do it for the nose as well, because it's a little bit weird that everything got so tattered in space, but his nose remained pristine. So I think we're going to need a little bit on his nose. Drop the height once again, add a mask. There we go. Yeah, so we'll export that. We'll see how this is looking in Engine. Wonder if we could paint a visor on.
You've got 10 minutes left.
I've got 10 minutes. I think I'll do a couple more additions, and then I may open the 3rd oven and reveal a finished one. But I think we've done quite well for 45 minutes. In fact, if anything, I think my lead core he's gonna have some questions about how quickly I've done this. I think he's going to be cracking the whip on Monday. It's a little bit too quick. There we go. Details are coming in now. Yeah, I think that's the right amount of sort of disheveledness.
Yeah.
Grunge. The tin foil's still looking quite shiny. I think what I'm going to start doing now, rather than working on each of the individual materials is sort of like start focusing on the sort of dirt that accumulates over the whole thing, because it's looking quite pristine considering it's literally washed up on the banks outside Lawville with all the rubble and the space seaweed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll do a couple more sort of overall passes with grunge. So if I stick all of this in a folder, and we'll just call it base. It's got the base, and then we'll add a dirt layer. So we get looking for that sort of like maroony, browny, wet sort of mud. But then, we probably don't want to be too specific to this area if it's going to be across the universe. So we'll keep it a sort of like generic sort of dirt. There we go. And dirt is very rarely glossy. So we'll bring that right back. We'll turn off the normal, keep the height. Might add a little bit of height information to it so it pops. And then we're going to go play around with those smart masks we've been playing around with so much today. So again, using all that sort of information we baked out, like its position in the world, we can do all sorts of cool masks like ground dirt. So it'll literally know where the base of this model is and where the top is from the maps that we baked, and be able to sort of mask the dirt specifically to the bottom. You can see we're just getting it on the bottom, and it'll fade out slowly upwards. Just going to pop the height on that a little bit. Really drop the gloss and the spec. Yeah. Pico's seen better days, that's for sure. I have to bring the angry eyebrows back. I don't think he'd be happy about this. We'll do one more. So at this point, as things start to get noisy, I start to sort of like put like debug colors on so I can actually see what I'm doing as I'm applying it, and then go back. So no one should be worried. I'm not going to just put bright red all over this. So if we get for a sort of, I want sort of like an overall wear on everything, so maybe a dust. That seems to be applying all over the place. So yeah, now that I can sort of get how I'm applying it to be where I want, it's building up like quite naturally in the crevices, but you're still getting it over the general surface as well.
Mm-hmm.
Once I've sort of like settled on that, then I can get rid of the creepy color red to something a little bit more subtle. There we go, and just drop down that a bit. All right, I'll get that overall dirt going. Okay, that is a very disheveled Pico.
Wonko says, just add the words "replace me" to the red and call it done. True story, Wonko. The third volleyball, the Mark Hamill volleyball, was going to be a replace me ball. I was going to paint the entire ball red and write "replace me" in it until Will had the idea for the Mark Hamill ball, and I'm like, that's better.
That was one of my favorite props from CitizenCon last year. A bunch of people who came to the event and had their stalls, they obviously sort of like dressed the stalls, and they had all sorts of like props from the game. I think I have one here. Someone made like a 3D printed a medical pen and stuff. Yep. And one of my favorite ones is someone that actually just made a replace me cube and just had gone around the event placing it in random places. Like where sort of like a plant pot would be or something, and you just have this bright red replace me. I thought it was funny. As well as some turtles as well. They were hiding turtles around the event as well. I thought I was going crazy at one point. I just kept encountering all these turtles hidden in stairwells.
Well, the turtles are all you guys. You're the ones who.
Were those us? I could have
No, the first turtle that was just put in game randomly. That was from your team. I'm saying.
Oh no, I mean at the event they were placed everywhere.
Oh no.
Someone had brought model turtles and placed them all around CitizenCon, as well as these replacement cubes. I really thought I was going crazy at one point. Okay, if we go back to engine now. Okay, yeah, all our wear and dirt and stuff starting to come in. I think it's just updating one of the maps. This is where your super fast hard drives come in handy. This one might be on its last legs.
I just ordered I just ordered an 8 terabyte M2 that's arriving tomorrow.
Am I right in thinking the N2, that's the ones that plug into your motherboard, right?
Yeah.
Man, those are the really, really quick ones, right?
Yeah.
Man, I'm pretty jealous. I remember when SSD was as fast as you could go, you know? I think we're running 5 minutes left. I think now is time to maybe see behind the red curtain, open the third oven door.
Lieutenant Porter's like, how much did that cost? I'm not thinking about it.
No, just install it. Don't think. Ask questions later. I'm gonna reveal what I managed to get up to. I probably shouldn't delete my work, but before the stream, I had a go at texturing myself, and you can see I went through the extra details of adding on his beak.
Sharpie
Gives
there.
him a lot more character. A little dirt on the foil.
You drew on the unibrow there.
Yeah, I drew on here. I drew things around here as well. I thought.
I mean, it works too. I mean,
hey, it all works. It all works. I'm sold. It looks to Pico like me. And yeah, I spent a really long time trying to get like directional stuff on the duct tape for this. It took more than the 55 minutes we've been making this, so I didn't want to go into too much detail on the duct tape on stream because that's a rabbit hole we do not have time to go down.
Yep.
So let's get the final version, or what could be the final version. I'm starting to think that maybe I could add some lenses. But let's get the.
Yeah, I think before we can make not for the stream today, but I think before we sign the thing off. We have to take a shot at the lens. It's a critical part.
Oh, he's just not the same without them. I think that's why he has such a sad expression in his face.
He's missing his lens.
Yeah, but maybe he's just got really sore eyes because of all the dirt that keeps going in him.
You've got Mando without his helmet right now.
Okay, I'm just exporting the final textures now. I imagine my computer's so slow it's probably still loading the textures I exported last time. And we're gonna need our spec. So that's exporting as well. It would be just my luck that we come to the end of the stream and as I try and present the final one, none of my textures will load. We're just left with this
That is how it happens.
I'm just thinking, a couple of minutes to go. Do I risk reloading the level in a hope that it'll work? I'll see. It's probably just like my textures are just compiling in the material or something. Very strange.
All right. Well, maybe we'll wrap it here while you can address that. John, thanks so much, man. Thanks for taking the time to make my personal Picoball dream a reality.
It's been a pleasure, man.
As for the folks who have been asking where Pico will go in the verse, we don't know yet. It won't be a subscriber flare. It won't be anything that costs money or anything. The props team was just like, we'd like to make it and stick it in the verse somewhere fun. So I have no idea if or when it gets added. You guys can tell me because I honestly won't know. We are gonna throw the raid today to who are we raiding, Molly? Moist Noodle. We are raiding Moist Noodle today. She says he's a PvP extraordinaire. He's all right. Moist and I go way back. He's all right. He's all right. Is he a PvP streamer? He's playing on the live environment right now. So we'll throw the raid over to Moist. Tell him. I don't know. Tell him Pico says hi. All right. For John, I'm Jared. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See ya.